So when I stop him, y'all gonna say he was too weak.
On my life.
And he stayed at 147.
You would not stop
too long.
me. You would not stop me.
Okay.
You're crazy. Where's this smoking on?
So Mitchell J. White gave his opinion on Crawford versus Errol Spence fight. He admitted that he's a huge Errol Spence fan, and when he was talking to Errol Spence team a month before the fight, someone from Errol Spence team told him that Errol Spence is no longer the same, and he's worried for him. When he goes up against Crawford, he wished the Crawford fight never happened. Here is exactly what Mitchell White had to say. Check it out.
Listen, I had some inside information, and a good friend of mine who trains with Spence and was with Spence like a month beforehand is, pro Spence. He told me, nah, Mike. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you don't have it. I was like, what are you talking? No, he said, Spence is not a shade of what he was.
Huh.
And this is before the fight. This is a while. He's like, I wish Spence would not take this fight. He's not ready.
Really?
Been in the ring with all that. And I was like, really? And then when I saw Spence, Crawford, I'm like, oh, shoot. He don't look like Spence. And then after that fight, I realized he really is not there. His legs wasn't there. There was so much that was, I'm a big fan of Spence, and I followed. And, he's had those accidents he's had. And so in sparring and the things that my friend saw that, he told me like a month before, he said he shouldn't fight.
Now, I'm going to leave a link for the full interview in the description box below. Go check it out. That being said, Errol Spence wasn't there only because Crawford was there. If someone else was in front of Errol Spence would have had looked the same. Listen, Mitchell White is one of my favorite actors. However, I totally disagree with him. Clearly, Mitchell White doesn't understand the sweet science in the sport of boxing, which I'm going to elaborate on that later on. For the meantime, when Mitchell White said Errol Spence was never the same after the car accident, well, we can't necessarily say that, since Errol Spence had the best performance of his career. After the car accident, right before he fought Crawford against Ugas, Errol Spence broke Ugas' face and stopped him, which that was by far his best performance. Better than the Mikey Garcia performance, who moved up 2 weight classes and Errol Spence couldn't stop him. The Sean Porter fight, that fight was so close, a lot of people felt like that fight could have went either way. The Kell Brook fight, obviously Kell Brook was coming off a loss and he had to move down 2 weight divisions after suffering an eye injury. On top of that, Errol Spence was also losing rounds against Kell Brook. Then you have the Danny Garcia fight. Errol Spence couldn't stop him. So by far, Errol Spence's best performance and best win on his resume is the Ugas fight, which was a fight that took place after Errol Spence's car accident and his eye injury. Errol Spence beat Ugas leading up to the Crawford fight. And no one said Errol Spence wasn't the same. Everyone was claiming Crawford is ducking Errol Spence, this, that, and the third, just like they said about Gamboa, Postal, Flex Diaz, Benavidez, and Sean Porter. First, Crawford was ducking them. Then, the moment he beat them by knocking them out, all of a sudden, they were either cherry picks or washed up. Either way, Crawford wanted to fight Errol Spence, Sean Porter, and everyone on PBC 5 years ago. So, if anything, that's their fault, not Crawford's fault. Either way, the results would have been the same. More importantly, here is a better question for Mitchell White. Name me one thing Errol Spence does better than Crawford. Better yet, name me multiple things Errol Spence does better than Crawford. Who has the better speed? Who has the better jab? Who has the better footwork? Who's quicker? Who has the better boxing ability? Who has more power? Who has better defense? Who has more reflexes? Who has the better IQ? Who's smarter in the ring? And who's stronger? The reality is, as we all seen, Crawford does all of the above better than Errol Spence. Then how the heck do you expect the result to be any different? What can Errol Spence do to beat Crawford? There isn't anything Errol Spence can do except of Crawford defeating his own self by not preparing right. However, even in that department, Crawford does better than Errol Spence. Crawford is better dedicated to the sport than Errol Spence. Therefore, when Mitchell White said, I don't want to sound like I'm taking credit away from Crawford, well, you just did. See, I'm going to use this analogy because I'm pretty sure Mitchell White will understand. A boxing match is just like a chess match if we both have the same abilities. However, since Crawford had way more abilities than Errol Spence, just like I pointed out earlier, from the power speed department, so on and so forth, can you imagine playing chess with someone else who has only soldiers on his board, nothing else, no queens, so on and so forth? On the other hand, you have all of the pieces. The only way your opponent is going to win is if he's smarter than you by setting traps for you with his soldiers. Even then, that's going to be extremely difficult to do. Now, can you imagine you also being the smarter player? That's equivalence of Crawford versus Errol Spence. On top of Crawford having all of the pieces and Errol Spence, on the other hand, having missing chess pieces, Crawford is the smarter player. So there isn't a possible way for Errol Spence to win. Mitchell White should know that. I mean, what Mitchell White does in movies, Crawford does in real life. And that's a fact. What Crawford did in the ring might look like a movie. However, this is real. I mean, I'm getting tired of all of these excuses every time Crawford gets a win. First, it was the weight class is the reason why Errol Spence lost, even though Errol Spence leading up to the fight said this was his best camp when it comes to making weight. But as soon as Crawford announced that he wants to fight the winner of Canelo versus Charlo at 168, now all of a sudden, Errol Spence was never the same after the accident, even though he had his best performance after the car accident. You got to make it make sense. Nevertheless, Mitchell White also had this to say. Check it out.
Think about this logically. Has Bud Crawford looked that dominant against anybody? And to do that with Errol Spence, not to try to take things away from Crawford.
Mitchell White said, have Crawford ever looked this dominant before? Which is crazy that he will say that, because that's making me question if he's really a boxing fan. Does he keep up with the sport? Since Crawford has never had a close fight. We all know Crawford have always been dominant his entire career. He has been truly boxing pound for pound #1 for a reason this entire time since Floyd and Andre Ward retired. So for Mitchell White to say that when Crawford stopped his last 11 opponents by knockout for the past 6 years, and before that, he was knocking everybody out too. This ain't nothing new to Crawford, nor the fans. Crawford has stopped every single welterweight at the welterweight division that he fought. So what's the surprise here? Crawford dominated Jeff Horn, just like he dominated Errol Spence. He dominated Amir Khan and Kell Brook, just like that. Especially when Crawford has never been as focused as he was for the Errol Spence fight. Crawford let it be known that was his best self and hardest preparation for a fight. Yeah, Crawford made the fight look easy, but that's because the preparation for the fight was extremely difficult. Crawford checked all of the boxes for Errol Spence like he did for no one else. So it's not a surprise here that Crawford looked that dominant against Errol Spence. That's why I said earlier Mitchell White doesn't understand the sweet science in the sport of boxing, because if he did, then he will see the skill set Crawford displayed in the Errol Spence fight. Errol Spence did everything he usually do against his opponents like he did against Ugas, Sean Porter, Kell Brook, Mikey Garcia. He did all of that against Crawford. However, Crawford nullified that and countered every single thing Errol Spence does. On the other hand, Errol Spence couldn't adjust to Crawford like Crawford adjusted to him. See, you can't buy skills. You have to develop that. More importantly, the gift of speed, power, quickness, you are either born with it or you don't have it. Well, guess what? Crawford is a gifted fighter, more than Errol Spence. With the facts being laid out, Errol Spence is a Hall of Famer. He's a great fighter. But on the other hand, Crawford showed us time and time again that he's an all-time great, perhaps a top 5 all-time great. The way he knocked out Porter, Gamboa, Errol Spence, Kell Brook, Benavidez, Jeff Horn, and the list goes on and on and on. So this ain't a fluke. This is real, and it's not a movie. With the facts being laid out, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe below. And to be continued on the next episode of Akhi TV. Peace out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Said before, and say it again. This is greatness. This is definitely greatness that you guys will be witnessing. July 29th. I've been preparing my whole life for this moment right here. Moments like these, they don't come often. And this is my time. Like I said before, this is my time. This is the Terrence Crawford era. Ain't no holding me back. Not Errol, not Derek, nobody stopping me from accomplishing what I want to accomplish July 29th. A lot of people say why it took so long. Doesn't matter, we're here now. And July 29th, I can assure you, I can promise you, y'all gonna walk away and y'all gonna say, that kid is special. And y'all gonna mark me as one of the greatest of all time. Right along with the Floyds, the Alis, the Fraziers. And y'all can sit there and say, oh, well, you ain't fought nobody. And my reply to that is, I guess Errol is just another nobody that I fought.